Take a seat at the kit, grab your sticks, and count us in as we choose the top 5 drum songs coming your way next.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Another top 5, Eric.
Here we are. And one that is very near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
I've been sitting on this for years. Okay.
He's been sitting on this like a hen sits on an egg and carefully takes care of it and makes sure it comes along and nurtures properly.
And I will refer back to our one of our very early episodes, which was our bass player episode, where Dean was giving me shit for weeks, thinking that because I happened to pick 4 out of the 5 that he chose. I happened to like, and he called me like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so predictable." And I was like, "Well, it's not that you're predictable. It's that I know your taste. I know who you like."
Yep.
So in this case, I think he knows who I'm. Yeah. I mean, I'm literally handing him this one on a silver platter.
Well, so that was an idea we had in the very beginning. Is at the end we used to try and figure out, like we used to do, instead of honorable mentions, like we used to figure out like a scorecard of what we thought someone else picked. And after that disaster, he pretty much knew. I'm like, this is just not going to be good. So it's like, well, we'll find a new ending piece to put in. If you're watching us on YouTube, there is a third person here. If you're listening to us, he's been very silent.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
He's just taking it all in. He's
just kind of letting us go. So I don't want to go too far without introducing our guest, Mr. Christopher Clark. Welcome aboard, sir. How are you?
Well, man, it's very good to be here. I'm looking forward to this. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Chris is very active on our group and has shown demonstrated a musical expertise that rivals. It doesn't rival mine.
No.
It rivals somebody's. It's close. No, but no. Chris is very, very vibrant and active on our page. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to get him in. I gave him a choice. I said, "Do you want to do an episode or a top 5?" And he said, "I'll do a top 5."
Yeah.
Right.
So that was his choice. He chose to jump in here with us.
And it was definitely a tough one to do too, because I feel like I could have made the list like 30 songs long, and I kept rotating them in and out as I was putting my list together.
Tough.
Really? Well, okay. So I'm sure. Well, here's the thing. All of our lists probably could have been long, but I didn't because there's a lot of obvious songs. So from that standpoint, it was a little more difficult for me to really choose. Like, you could probably go to Zeppelin all day long, right?
Right.
Yeah. So for you, for Chris, when you're looking at these songs for this particular thing, we're doing top 5 drum songs.
Right.
So they're not necessarily songs where it's just a drum song, right? It's the drums might be. What criteria did you use to come to your top 5?
My top 5, what I really thought about was what you said, is like I didn't want to cover ground that had been covered before. So like I know everybody always talks about Bonham and Keith Moon and Neil Peart and all those guys, and I'm not saying that you have to wait and see my list, but I'm not saying I didn't put any of those in, but what I tried to think of was what was some of the less obvious ones that people might think of as like the quintessential drum songs or what automatically comes to mind. And then the other thing I had in my mind is that there are definitely drummers that I think about that I don't think get enough love as drummers. And if you really listen to some of those songs that they play on, like, they really are a key element of the band. Like there's certain bands where the drummer changed, to me, the whole dynamic would change and they wouldn't be the same. Sure. So I really wanted to think about who could I give recognition to that wasn't necessarily, the more obvious ones that people always think about when they think about great drummers.
Nice. Eric, what about you? Is it as easy as we think it is going to be, or did you take the same kind of criteria?
Well, Chris, I thank you, because you are a man after my own heart, and you think like I do. I'm always I always go for the underdogs. Dean will, he'll try to say what is the greatest, what is the, I'm always like, well, I want to give love to people that I've actively listened to I keep it personal. I keep it subjective. But right. it's legitimately people that I've grown up listening to, but may not be that popular. I'm very, you know,
like when Dean sent me the topic, like there was one drummer, like I said, this is a guy that's got to go on my list because I don't feel like he gets talked about enough.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. For me, I try to approach it from this, from a song by not a drummer necessarily. I wasn't looking to recognize drummers per se, except for maybe in two cases. For me, I was thinking about songs that pop out of me that when I'm listening to it, when it comes up, I'm usually focusing in on the drums for one reason or another. It could be the technical, it could be the swing, it could just be it's really tasty. Not necessarily for the indulgence. So I'm gonna guess we're not gonna see Moby Dick on here. Probably not YYZ. And there's nothing wrong with those. And like Chris said, it's not that we're not dissing any artists that are not on here, because there are a lot of great drummers. And you know, but for me, I think it's more, Chris, it's more like when I'm hearing the song.
For me, it was easy because I've been sitting on this list, and
yeah.
How
long have you been sitting on this list for?
For me, long? It's been 3 years. But this is this just like our guitar player episode, you know, the guitar solo episode. We ended up picking, and I think Rob mentioned that, you know, a lot of the picks that we chose were some of our favorite guitar players. So in this case, I would be, you know, remiss not to include 4 out of my picks are 4 of my all-time favorite drummers. So that being said, it may not be the song you expect from the song.
It'll be the artist you expect.
I kind of did a little bit of both. So I dove deep and I picked songs that may not be what people would pick, you know, like most people, like you would find on a top 10, like, you know, like When the Levee Breaks or anything like that. But Bonham's not one of them. Bonham's not one of my drummers, so he's you know.
Well, actually, when I made my list, I was, you know, my younger brother and I are very tight, and we talk about music all the time. And one of the things when he saw my list, he's like, "No Bonham," and I'm like, I feel like it. But to me, it's almost like it's been done so many times before.
It's obvious. Yeah, they're exactly. There are obvious choices. Bonham. Alex Van Halen, you know, there's so many big time drummers that we're, again, like I said, just because they're not on this list doesn't mean they're not great. It's just it's how we're approaching it too, and what we're looking for. So it's always, you know, these top 5s are great because they're always subjective. They're always from, you know, we're going to have 3 different points of view. So why don't we just get it going instead of teasing it? Eric is going to kick us off with his number 5.
Okay.
Top drum songs.
All right.
Let's hear it.
All right. My number 5 pick is Mr. Stuart Copeland from The Police. And the song that I chose is One World, not 3 from Ghost in the Machine. What a great. This was probably the song that I've heard him say in interviews how much he liked to play with the drums. And I think at this point, this was the experimental album. So they were kind of breaking out musically. And he was saying, you know, like Sting was, you know, following through with that bass line, and it was just steady. And he was like playing around with the drums behind the beat all the time. And he said, I could do that. As a drummer, I don't need to be complex. We could play it simple. You could play with time signatures. And that's exactly what he does on this song. The rototoms, the sound of the drums, thanks to him and Hugh Padgham, the co-producer, you know, he really developed that drum sound and became that signature. He really put a stamp on what his sound was going to be. And I think this song is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and that song's got kind of the reggae feel to it, so it gives him a lot of room to work in too, and a lot of room for those great little things that Stuart Copeland is good for, those little add-ins.
Yep.
You know, which is
not
Not surprised. It's a great choice for a song. It's a great choice.
And it's true that drum sound is just so distinctive when you hear him play that, like, pop to his drums.
You know it's Copeland.
Certain drummers have that. Yeah, certain drummers have that sound where it's like you hear it and it's like, okay, you know. By the way, for everybody listening, we're going to be rolling all of our picks up into a Spotify playlist. So if you want to hit us up on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and give us your picks, we will add it to that Spotify playlist. So we will have a banger of a playlist that we love to crowdsource and we love to have added to. So by all means, once we're done here, hit us up because we've got some honorable mentions too. So we're going to really have a nice package here.
Yep.
Ready for number 5, Chris?
I am. All
right. So I'm ready.
So this is one that actually I didn't come to until I was older. I'm a big Stones fan, but I'm one of those Stones fans that, like, when you get to some girls, after everything else after that, I kind of like fall off and I don't really pay much attention. And I was watching the show The Americans, and this song came on, and the thing in one of the scenes, and just the sound of the drums, I was like, what the heck is that? I've never heard that before. And it's on Tattoo You by the Stones. It's called Slave. And it's not one of the more standout tracks. I mean, the Stones have toyed with playing it live, but they never have before. And it's like a showcase for Charlie Watts. I mean, it's all the things that you want to hear Charlie Watts do, playing in the pocket and that steady rhythm. He's doing all these crazy drum fills. Charlie Watts, the thing everybody always knows about him is he doesn't hit his hi-hat and his snare at the same time. And that stuff is very much on display. And it's just all this chaos happening with, Keith Richards playing guitar, and you got Billy Preston on keyboards and Sonny Rollins on sax. And it would be a mess if it wasn't Charlie Watts holding it down. And it's just this unbelievable groove that, to me, it's the perfect. If somebody were to tell me what is Charlie Watts like as a drummer, this is the song I would play them.
That's a great choice. That's one of my favorite tracks off the record.
Chris, you have passed the first entry point in the top 5. You may proceed, sir, and you may continue on to number 4 when we get there.
Awesome.
Well, oddly enough, today, as of the recording of this episode, the Rolling Stones released a new song today called "Angry" from their upcoming album.
Yeah.
And I've heard a little bit. What's that? Yeah, Charlie Watts is on 2 songs.
Yeah.
On that album, so that's kind of bittersweet. That the Stones are still going, and the song is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I haven't heard it yet.
I posted a link on our group page, so you guys can go check it out. The Rolling Stones, it's like you can't count them out.
No, never.
But Charlie Watts is one of those unassuming drummers, right? He was not. Usually, you think of drummers as big, bombastic personalities, and he was quite the opposite of that. He was a pocket drummer. He was there to get the job done, to drive the band forward, and that's what Charlie did to.
He was like a metronome, man.
Yeah. To great effect. So,
yeah.
Alrighty, my number 5. We're gonna go with a group that a couple of albums into their career decided to change direction, and they needed a new sound. And the song I picked is the first cut off of their album when they reconfigured themselves, which is The Cult. And the album is Electric from 1987, and it was a single, but it's the first song on the album called Wildflower.
Okay.
And the drummer is Les Warner. He's not a well-known drummer, but the Cult recruited him just because they needed something. They needed something different from the kind of goth, alternative-y stuff that they were playing before, very atmospheric, and they really stripped down to a hard rock 4-piece sound. And Wildflower just opens the album, and this drum, the drum pattern on this, and just the drumming just drive this song forward. Which kind of signals that this is something different from the Cult. This is a new sound. This is something more akin to AC/DC.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. And that's what first grabbed me when I heard Love Removal Machine. I'm like, oh, this sounds a lot like AC/DC. So for the Cult, this was a turning point. And I think that the drumming on this album kind of, all the other band members were the same. So they're bringing in a different drummer that's going to kind of give them what they need. And it totally revamped the Cult. So Wildflower from 1987.
Now, was he the original drummer when they first recorded the album? Right. It was like Love.
He was there for what they call the Manor sessions, where I believe they had hired him there, and then they hated all that. They went out to New York. They found Rick Rubin, who at the time was only known for working with the Beastie Boys, and was still really kind of an unknown element. I think actually he was doing this. Oh no, that was the Beastie Boys. He was doing Slayer at the same time, right? When we did our Beastie Boys.
What year did that record come out?
87.
So at that same time he was doing Slayer, and then I think he had even done
Licensed to Ill, he was doing at the same time. Yeah.
And then I think he was also working with Glenn Danzig, which is his early records have a very similar sound.
Yeah, a busy guy. But he was able to give the Cult a new sound, but Les Warner, I got to give him credit for just kind of, putting that drum beat down so they can really.
A lot of times those pocket drummers, man, they just they don't get enough credit, like the Phil Ruggs and the Les Warner on the Cult record. They just, those guys, and those drum parts are hard because just to maintain that beat consistency is crazy.
But yeah, he's right. That song, just like the way it kicks off, it's just, and it's a very particular, very, very distinct drum sound. That I know the sound. I know the snare. I know the snap of that snare on that song that kicks off that album. Yeah.
No, it's a good record.
It's a good, I recollect that in the car, driving around, of course, always playing that one.
We did most of our listening in vehicles.
My number 4.
Number 4. Ready for number 4? Let's do it.
Ready for my number 4?
Let's rock it.
I'm ready, man.
I think let's go. Let's go. All right. So my number 4 is a drummer that I was actually very, very fortunate to come across very early as a preteen. Pretty much when I turned, like, I think it was 13, 14, or maybe a little bit older. I think, I was taking drum lessons at the time. And I found this thing called Jazz Fusion. And the drummer that turned me on to this guy he could play just like him. And it's kind of an odd choice. It is an outtake from his first solo record. The drummer is Billy Cobham from.
Oh my God, he's so good.
Yeah, from Panama. Panama's own Billy Cobham. He's phenomenal. He's double bass. He's got a lot of power to his drumming. He's got the jazz chops, but the syncopation of this guy, the flams, he's just, and he plays with a very, very heavy hand and heavy feet, and he really brings the rock element out of Jazz Fusion as well. So, but the song that I chose is actually an outtake from his first record, Spectrum. And the reason I chose it is because I recall taking the lessons and going down Main Street, walking. I think I told this story before, but I remember walking down the alleyway to the studio where he was. And as I got closer to the studio, I could hear him like rehearsing, and it just kind of sort of, it was almost like a fade in where I hear this drumming, and he's just, he's going. I open the door and he's just playing like Cobham. And so the song in question is a song called All for One. And it's really just basically a sort of a 10-minute, he's just going at it. It's a fade in. These guys are just, playing the hell out of this thing. And the song just has multiple changes throughout. So he kind of slows down, then he speeds up again. But man, check out those double bass drums. And it's easy to find, Dean, for playlist purposes. It'll be easy to find. It is. Yeah. It does appear on 2 of his, the Atlantic Years retrospective and his anthology. So you'll be able to find it.
So Billy Cobham, and the title of the song again is?
All for One.
All for One.
And Spectrum, I think Spectrum is actually on Spotify, because I remember hearing I remember that I came to that record because Tommy Bolin played guitar on it, and I was just, oh my God, man, that's an amazing album.
Yeah, that one has the probably the most famous track is Stratus. I know Jeff Beck covered that a lot with Vinnie Caliuta, because he had those chops like Cobham in his band when he put Caliuta in his band. So they would do that. I actually got to see that perform live. Him with Tal Wilkenfeld was on bass playing, and that was tremendous seeing that that song, because I knew Cobham, I knew the song, so that was a treat. So anyway,
there you go.
Yep,
number 4. All right, Chris, number 4. What do you got?
So this one, I'm a bit of a prog rock freak, and if I was gonna pick, if I got to pick
right room,
if I got to pick a live record, I would have put this song on here from the live album that it's on. It's from the album Duke by Genesis. It's kind of that transitional album when they went from prog to a little bit more poppy, but the prog is still there, and it's the opening cut, Behind the Lines, with Phil Collins playing the drums, and he's not doing anything too crazy. It's basic 4/4 time, but what he's doing within that 4/4 time is just insane. All those crazy fills and the flat flourishes on the cymbals and stuff. It's just, that's the thing that always stood out to me about that track, is what he's doing on the drums. And Phil Collins, people say he's a good drummer, but I don't think people really realize how truly great of a drummer he was before he got ill and couldn't play anymore, which is a real tragedy. And that's definitely, to me, one of his best moments.
Well,
Eric, you can take the commentary.
I can take the commentary, and Chris, you kind of stole my thunder there. He is one of my favorite drummers of all time. Yep. So I'm just gonna switch probably my pick out with an honorable mention that I have.
No, keep him in there. Keep him in there, and then save the honorable mention for. Yeah, we knew it was gonna happen. I mean,
okay. So there's no. I'm trying to avoid overlap, but there it is. Okay. But that's a great choice.
We're gonna give him the love.
That's a phenomenal choice. And when you speak of 4/4 time, man, his version of 4/4 time is not 4/4.
It was crazy. I read about this cut before, and I was like, this is. I was shocked when I heard it was in 4/4. I never realized that before.
Yeah, it's crazy because he plays a lot of he does a lot of trickery on the hi-hat and his cymbals. The cymbal work. Kind of, he adds those little those little things there to really make it sound like he's doing more. But is he? You really can't tell. But it's great. Yeah, it's just he tricks you. But
and the way he used to come out and play with Chester Thompson at the beginning of every show, doing that, the two of them out, it's so amazing.
I could go on. Dean knows. I could.
Well, we're going to be doing a Phil Collins episode coming up, so it's, there's one on the horizon. So Behind the Lines by Genesis with Phil Collins behind the kit. So cool. All right, we're building up. For my number 4, let me ask you guys a question. Anybody here ever heard of the Purdy Shuffle?
It sounds familiar.
Glenn Purdy.
Drummer Bernard Purdy.
Bernard Purdy, sorry.
Yeah, it's called the Purdy Shuffle. Well, this song is not what you think it is. The drum work on this song is a combination of the Purdy Shuffle and John Bonham's work on Fool in the Rain.
That's interesting.
1982, the song is Rosanna by Toto, with Jeff Porcaro doing a version of the Purdy Shuffle and a combination of Fool in the Rain also. Rosanna is one of those songs that as soon as that shuffle starts, it sets the tone.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of these are on our list are going to be pocket drumming. It's guys that set the foundation for the song. And with Rosanna, that's what it is. That's the first thing you hear is that drum, the shuffle come in, and then everything else builds around that song. And Toto, as we know, is a group of studio musicians, so these guys were pros from the get-go. And Jeff Porcaro, just an amazing drummer and one of those guys that knows how to do that work.
Yeah,
has a keen ear. Adapted the Bernard Purdy Shuffle appears famously on Steely Dan, Asia album. Developed. I think he had it before that, but he brought it to Steely Dan. So Rosanna in 1982 for Toto.
Excellent choice. And
gotta go with it.
Porcaro, I mean, I consider him very underrated. I don't think people realize just how many songs that guy played on.
Yeah, he was a prolific session guy.
Yeah.
There's actually there's a great video that shows how he played how he came up with the Rosanna Shuffle, and how he combined it, and it's just amazing to see how he did it and how his mind works. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And hopefully we're shining a light on, like I said, drummers aren't just like the crazy guy in the background. Some of it's a lot of technique, a lot of style, and a lot of thought. And I guess, Chris, if they're doing their job, you don't notice it. Is that?
I don't know, man.
Is that the mark of a good like if they're doing their job so well, you almost don't notice it. Like with Rosanna, right? That's why I picked that, is because it's so. Part of the tapestry of the song that you almost don't notice it. But whenever I listen to that song, that's the thing. Like that shuffle just kind of grabs you. Right?
It's amazing. No, it's a great pick. He's an amazing drummer.
Yeah. All right.
Wow. This
all right. We're moving along to number 3. Don't forget, hit us up on social media. Give us your picks, because we're going to add this to a really great. This is going to be a really great Spotify playlist of things we're going to listen to. So, number 3, Eric.
All right, my number 3 is a drummer that I happened to come across in the 90s. As you probably heard us talk about the 90s, and 90s wasn't exactly or at least my...
Speak for yourself.
era of, like I was still listening to songs of the past in the 70s and still digging on. So, but, and, especially, when it came to like drummers, to me, drummers of the 90s, and you might obviously, a lot of people would disagree with this statement, but I think they all kind of have the same kind of sound. But this drummer kind of really stood out for me, and it's Jimmy Chamberlin of the Smashing Pumpkins. And he, and I couldn't pick a better choice than Tonight from Melancholy. It's a symphony of drumming. I mean, it's the song itself. It has that kind of flair to it. But I mean, you got everything. He's got the rolls going. He's got the flams, and then the song slows down to that quiet rim shot, and then it just builds up from there. And it's just a phenomenal performance on that. I love it. And he's just, struggled with addictions and all that kind of, actually got outed of the band, and then he came back and they welcomed him back in the fold. But he's one of the standout drummers of the 90s for me. Cause he just had the solid technique, and he had like drummers from the past. Like I'm thinking stuff from the 70s. Like, he could probably do a lot of jazz fusion type of stuff. And I think he's got those chops of really being that kind of a drummer if he really wanted to. The Pumpkins were always one to expand upon their horizons anyway. And I think he was the great fit for that band.
Yeah, almost sounds like there's timpani in that song.
Oh yeah, like yeah, definitely.
Those big kettle, like really kind of goes for it, kind of with that big, like you said, the big orchestral sound, or a big a big arrangement for that song,
right?
Which was something different for the Pumpkins as well too. So wow,
I mean,
all right. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
Chris, what you have something to add to the
I was gonna say Jimmy Chamberlin actually was a jazz trained drummer. He
okay.
His resume actually does have some jazz in his background.
So that's the thing. I kind of gravitate to those kinds of drummers. I think I instantly recognize that technique in my head, like, oh, this guy's got it. You kind of feel it. You know what I mean? Like feel the rhythm. But as it were. But yeah, those are probably my favorite types of drummers. At least drummers who have that ability, even though they may not have to do it, or perhaps the song doesn't require it, or they're just the pocket drummers that you need to just do what's necessary. But to know that they can do more than that is always it's always great. And there's probably some solo record in a bargain bin somewhere that they put out that that nobody bought. That they where they're doing this kind of stuff or playing with a band that nobody's ever heard of.
Their passion project.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
all right, number 3, Chris. You ready? You ready for number 3? We're right in the middle, right in the middle of our countdown.
So since Eric just did a 90s drummer, I'm going to do a drummer that I got into in the 90s. I can honestly say that this guy's era of the band is probably one of my favorite bands of all time, and I'm talking about Mike Portnoy, who was in the band Dream Theater, and on their third record, they open with a cut called 6 O'Clock, and it's just him like basically showing off a little bit in the beginning. It's just an amazing drum. It's this amazing drum roll, and he's holding down a song where there's a lot of stuff going on. It's just very. He's a bit more of a flashy drummer, but he's also one of those drummers where when you hear him hit a drum, that it's him playing it. He's a phenomenal musician, and I don't think the band has sounded quite the same since he's left. Dream Theater, I don't know if anybody out there knows what they sound like, but they're very much like a prog band, like a Yes or a Genesis, like if Metallica kind of hybrided with them. And I'm
they're like a heavier, more guitar oriented sound, more sort of, they bring out the rock element, but they got some good stuff.
How many albums was Portnoy with Dream Theater for?
I want to say so. It's one. It's 1, 2, 3. I can't. If I would sit here and count them all out, it'd be a while. But he was in the band from when their first record
long tenure.
Yeah, he was in the band from '89 until 2000. Their first record came out in '89, and he was in until 2010. And
okay, yeah. So he was really, basically the drummer for Dream Theater.
Yeah, and he was essentially like one of the leaders of the band. So his he was very prominent in their sound and in their writing and stuff. And
what was the name of the song again?
6 O'Clock.
6 O'Clock. Okay.
Yeah.
Want to make sure that we get the right song.
Actually spelt out like time, like 6. Yeah.
The number 6 or SIX?
Like what you would see on
like the 6 with the colon and the zeros.
Yes.
Wow. All right. Clever, Dream Theater. Very clever. All right. So I'm gonna give you guys a little hint. I don't have anything from the 90s. Even in my honorable mentions. And I thought about it, but there, I was listening. I was enjoying the 90s for different reasons, not necessarily for the drumming. It was more like the grunge stuff, like the actual material and the style of music. And I thought about it. I really didn't pick anything from the 90s that kind of like grabbed me. For my number 3, Eric, guess what?
Go ahead.
We're bringing we have to bring the bell out. We haven't used the bell in a while.
I would have been very disappointed if you didn't pick him. If you did not pick him, I'd be like, we're done.
Why did we do this list? Chris, if you don't know what that bell means, whenever we make a reference to Jeff Lynne or Electric Light Orchestra,
I was going to say, I was going to ask you if it was Bev Bevan.
Yeah,
it is. Well, usually when we're ringing the bell, it's a Jeff Lynne mention. It's rarely ever anything else. But yeah, Electric Light Orchestra, a certain pocket of time, because as ELO went further into their career, Bev Bevan got less active. The songs required less or demanded less, and the drum got really gated and had a really kind of different sound. But there was a Couple Space album where he had that big classic rock sound that gave ELO that. Like the drums were able to match the orchestra, the orchestral elements, and the bigness of those albums were backed by someone who was able to kind of bring that majesty. And actually, the song I'm picking is Shangri-La, off of a New World Record from 1976. Well, what did you think it was gonna?
I thought it was gonna be Fire on High. Honestly,
I thought about that. You know what? One of the reasons I didn't pick it is because it's like about 2 minutes of not a lot of things going on. Then it takes a while to get to the main riff, and then it takes a while to get to the drums. I like Shangri-La because it has those elements. It's got those big fills that Bev Bevan does.
You're right. Yeah.
Those
great. It's a great choice.
It's a great song. It's Beatles inspired. I just love the song, but Bev's drumming on that it's a nice kind of feel to get to know what the things that he was doing. He's done more on Out of the Blue, and I could have picked other songs, but Shangri-La has a nice feel to it, but then it's got those nice big fills at the end that he does. So, and Bev Bevan is from Birmingham, just like John Bonham. There was like 3 big drummers from Birmingham, and it was John Bonham, somebody else, and Bev Bevan were known as like the Birmingham.
Bill Ward.
Bill Ward
from Black Sabbath. In fact, Bev Bevan replaced
in
Black Sabbath for a period. Yeah,
that's right.
I think it was actually in '83. I think it was actually, right? Because that was when ELO was on hiatus, and he did some dates with them. So,
which blew my mind back in the day.
For ELO fans back then, we were like, "What the hell is Bev Bevan doing in Black Sabbath?"
I remember seeing the leather vest he's wearing. I remember seeing like the photos, or maybe even a performance. It might have been I don't know where we saw it, but I think, we caught some of that footage of him playing.
Yeah, we didn't know that it was regional, that they were from the same area. Like,
right,
we didn't connect that. We just thought, why is Bev Bevan in Black Sabbath? It's like, it doesn't make sense.
No,
very random.
It seems on the surface like a very random pick, but he acquitted himself or acquainted himself or whatever he did. He did it very well. He stepped up to the plate. But with ELO, as much as Jeff Lynne is the sound of ELO, in my mind, or maybe in Eric's mind, Bev Bevan is as much the sound of ELO.
I will totally pick the latter. What you just said. I mean, you can't dismiss the contribution that him and Kelly Grauka on bass had with that band, and Richard Tandy. They were the band. That was ELO for me. I mean, it was like, Lynne took it in a different direction, but he just, that big sound that they had in the 70s, there's nothing like that. Those booming drums were a part of it. So, all right. Yep.
Number 2, we're moving on to number 2. Are we ready? Chris, you've made it through the first 3 doors.
Okay.
So you're still
excellent choices. X-Holics. I mean, I think the whole thing is just,
it's going to be great stuff. The stakes are getting higher though, Chris. Now the pressure, I don't know if the sweat is beating on your forehead like the guy in Total Recall.
I'm pretty confident with
the beat of sweat.
I'm pretty confident with my number 2.
All righty, Eric, what do you got for number 2?
All right, my number 2 is Genesis, and the song in question. I mean, Behind the Lines, I almost went with the whole, I was going to go for Broke and do, Duke's Travels and Duke's End, but again, like Dean mentioned, like you have that long extent, 2 minutes of like nothing going on. And then the drums kick in and there's that long, but it's phenomenal drumming there.
Oh,
but one of the albums that I really love, and for some reason, even the band doesn't like it very much. I think it's a totally underrated record is And Then There Were Three. And this is
that's a great album, man.
Yeah, there's some great, and especially Phil's drumming is songs like Down and Out and Lady Lies and Burning Rope and what he's doing there. But my pick is honestly, it's Follow You, Follow Me. I love the drums on this song. It's so understated, and yet there's that slight complexity there of him just playing more than what's required. I mean, you hear little bits of percussion. You hear the cowbell, which if you heard the remix of the song, the 2007, it almost sounds like he's banging on a pipe. They really amped up those really percussive things that he's doing, like hitting those other things, like outside the kit, exploring that kit. But yet the flow of the song is just so beautiful. The way it's one of the first songs that I was really attracted to when it came to Genesis. When I first got into them, Abacab was my gateway, and then going further back, that was one of that song. I think it's a beautiful song. Mike Rutherford wrote it, and it's no surprise because the bass and him and Phil complement each other very, very well on that song.
They really do.
And it just flows. And it can almost feel like, like you see the video they used to play it on, and where Phil is actually singing while playing. I almost feel like that could be possible. Because it's not easy to sing and play drums at the same time. Not many drummers do it.
Nope.
But a song like that, I can almost feel like he could have done that. Yeah. And I know they probably did it just for the video, but it's like, but yeah, I've always loved that song. And it's always, it never leaves. It's part of my, it's in my heart, so it had to be on the list. So there it is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those songs where it's like knowing when not to play. Like, I can show
exactly.
off. So I really,
Let the less is more school of music playing.
But the thing of it is when he's what you think you're hearing is he's not playing anything, but you know it's there anyway. Like you're kind of filling in the gaps, like of what a drummer could do there. It's like there's more you could do more with this song, but he chooses not to. And yet there is that. It's not just a straight beat. It's not like his poppy stuff in the 80s. It's a little bit more complex than that, but not much. And it's just a perfect blend.
Nice.
I just love it.
Follow You, Follow Me from Genesis from And Then There Were Three.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's not And Then There Were Three. Now it's And Then There Were Two. So Chris, what do you have for your number 2?
My number 2 is from the professor of Rush, Mr. Neil Peart. And it's the song that I've heard. If you watch the documentary about Rush, few of the drummers say that if you could have played this song, this was the benchmark for how good you really were. And that's La Via Strangiato off of the Hemispheres record.
That's one of Eric's favorites.
Thank you. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, just all the different things that he's doing, and like the time changes and all the crazy fills, and then it goes into that song from the 30s, like that you hear in the cartoons, and just the ability to like go into all those different moods and tempos and time signatures and still hold the listener and not feel bored after listening to a 10-minute instrumental really is a testament not to the band, but also that he's able to kind of hold it all together while all that's going on.
It is a phenomenal time. And Dean and I talked about this on Moving Pictures, YYZ. YYZ is a sort of more refined, I think, version or distilled version of what he's doing in that song. There's a lot of YYZ in that track.
I'm sorry, Eric. YYZ because they're Canadian.
Okay,
so it's YYZ.
Okay,
we're going to talk about Canadian artists. We got to
getting regional here.
We got to speak their language. They don't say Z, they say Z. Right, Chris? Back me up.
I know it is. It's Z. It's YYZ if you hear people talking. Yep.
Say, absolutely. It's that Canadian thing. They got, they have the Tim Hortons coffee, but they say Z instead of Z.
Oh,
see, coffee is incredible, by the way.
It really is, and I didn't know it was from Canada. So you learn something new every day. Dean has all this great knowledge of
the breadth of my useless trivia goes outside the bounds of music.
There is no bounds. Yeah, it's like from another galaxy
with the shit of information that I know. I know no bound. I'm the Goodwill Hunting.
He's the savant of
trivia that people really don't care about.
Yeah.
Like, did Eric really give a shit that Tim Hortons was from Canada? No, but he knows it.
But it's great coffee, though.
He knows it. Yeah. Oh, they're great. I love it.
Tim Hortons was a hockey player.
Yeah, he was a hockey player.
Oh, yep. Okay. Well, I didn't know that either. So there you go. He took it even further.
Well, I'm going to go one step further. I believe Tim Hortons is now owned by Burger King.
That would believe
I think
that.
I think they own the
Really? That's odd.
The IP of Tim Hortons. But yeah, their breakfast sandwiches are incredible as well. Anyway, that's a different top 5. My number 2, this was probably one of the first songs that I really realized that a drummer, some drummers are in the driver's seat, as it were. Some drummers are the ones that are really kind of driving the bus and pushing it. Mm-hmm. And this is Eric. He might be surprised. Anyway, it's the song is "Perfect Strangers" by Deep Purple.
It's a good tune
from 1984.
Okay,
I'm not known as a Deep Purple fan, but when that album came out and the song "Perfect Strangers" came out, Ian Pace's drumming is crisp. It's driving. Mm-hmm. It pushes the song forward in a way that at that time, I was used to the big bombastic drum fills of ELO and stuff like that and Styx and whatnot. But hearing Ian Pace propel that song, which is a very Zeppelin-esque Kashmir ripoff, let's call it what it was, but it was still infinitely listenable. I'm like, oh wow, that sounds like Zeppelin, which was kind of neat. But then, upon listening to it, it's the drumming, it's Ian Pace that's just propelling this song forward.
Yeah,
for me, and that's what for me, that's what I like about, there's the flashy stuff and the really technical stuff, but this is another one. And that's probably the theme of my list, is that drummers that really just kind of find their place in the song, but are so important to it, that particular drummer.
Yeah.
Ian Pace,
I remember that song had the crisp is a really good word for that sound. I mean, and again, a lot of people using the tools of the day, drum machines and electronic drums. And, it was very hard to find a really great drum sound in the 80s, there were certain drummers that had
and Deep Purple was able to kind of make that leap into the 80s that we always talk about as well. Those 70s artists that they kind of trip into the 80s and don't really know. Same thing. Deep Purple didn't fall for any of the trappings of the 80s in 84 when this came out. That's right in the middle of all that. But you got Ian Pace behind his kit. Really just kind of just killing it on that song.
Great choice.
And even for the 80s, like Ian Pace, like in that record and just the sound of that record and his drums, it's almost like they didn't even use any of the 80 studio tricks. It still sounds very much of the 70s.
Yeah, absolutely. It just sounds better produced, right?
Yep.
It doesn't sound slicker, but that's the thing. Like Eric said, that his drums are just so there. They're so present. And there's such a crack to it. And you feel, and maybe it's the way the song is structured too, that it feels like it's kind of lurching forward. Mm-hmm. And it feels like Ian Pace is on the front of it, kind of pushing it out there. So
yeah, great choice.
Anyway, it's going to be on the list, so you guys can check that out if you want to revisit a pseudo Zeppelin song that seemed to have been popular in the 80s as well, as bands coming out with songs that sounded like Zeppelin, because it was that group Kingdom Come. Mm-hmm. The Bonham Son had a group called Bonham, which they sounded like Zeppelin as well. So. Whitesnake, it was a thing. Yeah, actually, Slow and Easy. That when I first heard Slow and Easy, I thought that was kind of Zeppelin-ish, which got me.
Still of the Night was a total Zeppelin ripoff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. With the,
let's not discount the Firm. You know, Page himself was trying to.
Page wasn't even great at doing his own Zeppelin ripoffs. So. Okay, we're ready. We're ready for number one.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm ready to unfurl. So, for those listening, don't fret after the number ones. We've got some honorable mentions. We'll go through those a lot quicker, but we're going to add all of these to the Spotify playlist. So, Eric, go ahead, uncork us a number one, won't you?
This is probably going to be a very boring choice, guys. I'm sorry. It's a little bit underwhelming, but I have to go with Keith Moon. I got to go with Who Are You? His performance on that, it was the last thing he did before he died. And I can't forget that. I will never forget that. It's just, and the thing of it was such a solid piece of drumming, which is not what he's really known for. You know, he's doing a perfect 4/4 time in that song. And it's just, and that's not something that Keith Moon ever did, because he was very much all over the place. But I guess he was trying to sober up. He was trying to, and it was a really, really, really committed performance. And of course the song breaks into that stuff with the mallets and, that little symphonic thing that he's doing in the middle there. And, but I just remember seeing The Kids Are All Right in a midnight show at the Pickwick in Dobbs with Glenn, our friend Glenn, and watching that movie and seeing that footage for the first time of them capturing that last session that he was a part of with the gaffer tape, when he's got the headphones, taped to his head, and he's just having a ball. And it just not too long after that, I think it was might have been just mere days or even a week or a couple of weeks right after that, he was gone. So it was tragic, but it's, I could have picked anything from the early days. I'm a huge fan of the early work of The Who, and anything could have been great. I almost picked a song called I Need You from A Quick One, which is a song that he actually wrote and sang, not a great singer. And it's just a sloppy, very, very drum fill, and it just kind of the sound of it almost enhances, it comes to the front, and it's just very distorted. And it's it's so Keith, but it's and I almost went with that one, but I couldn't leave Who Are You off the list. I just had to go with that one. So there it is. There's, sorry if it's a little underwhelming.
That's all right. No,
but that's, you hear it every day on classic rock radio.
But it's a great choice.
It is a great choice.
The thing about Keith Moon always looks like his technique always looked like he didn't know how to play drums. Like the way he would do things and the way he would hold the stick. Yeah. He was like the anti-technique drummer.
Oh, I think he probably did that on purpose. He went out of his way to be not your typical drummer.
Yeah, he always looked like he just this guy was it was like the first time behind the kit, almost like the way he would hold the sticks and kind of hit things and stuff. A very, like I said, non-technical way. But Keith, again, another great. What are you going to say about Keith Moon?
I mean, and it's interesting. It's interesting too because you say that song is Keith Moon being a little bit more of a pocket drummer than he is in other songs. And, one of the things, if you ever hear Pete Townsend talk about Keith Moon, is that all he ever really wanted Keith Moon to do was go boom, bap, boom, boom, bap, boom, bap. And that was always a frustration for him as a songwriter because he knew that wasn't who Keith was. And so for him at the end of his life to finally pull that together and do that is kind of interesting.
And it's Pete was always keeping the time. He was the rhythm.
Yeah.
I think he became a rhythm player, probably not by choice because he had to. Right. Between Keith and John Entwistle, those guys were just, they were a force. I mean, that was a hell of a rhythm section. That was oh my God, So so there it is.
Wow. All right. Yep. Number one, Who Are You from The Who?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chris. You've got a number one. You've got a number one on your list. You have to. You've come this far. You've climbed the mountain.
So my number one, when you sent me that this was going to be the list, I knew this guy was going to be on my list. He's not a drummer I came to until I was a little bit older. My brother is a massive, massive fan of the band that he plays for, and I kind of picked it up by listening, through osmosis through him and stuff. But that's Carter Beauford from the Dave Matthews Band, and on their record Crash, there's a song called Tripping Billies, and he's just one of those drummers that he does all of these crazy things, but at the same time, he holds it all together as well. But just all of his fills and his cymbal crashes and stuff, and like you know, he's very specific in his choices that it keeps the song together. But it's just to listen to him play, he's the thing more than Dave's voice, more than Dave's acoustic guitar playing. It's his drumming that I'm really listening to when I listen to the Dave Matthews Band. It's just it's so much fun to listen to.
Yeah, I love that. I love number 41 on that album. That's my favorite record. Yeah, Say Goodbye is phenomenal. Yeah, he's great. And somebody said to him, he's like, "Oh, you play." I think it was somebody was interviewing him, and he's like, "You guys do such sophisticated music," and he's looking up at the guy, and he's laughing. He's like, "No, we don't. We're not doing anything sophisticated. There's nothing sophisticated about us," which is odd because he's a very, he's a phenomenal drummer. Yeah,
I mean, they would be a very different band without him.
Yeah, absolutely. Huh. Yep.
Oh, Tripping Billies from Dave Matthews Band.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My number one, oddly enough, it's not about who the drummer was because I didn't know I had a difficult time finding out who the drummer was on this song. I originally thought it was Hal Blaine.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out Hal Blaine played on the rest of this album, but he didn't play on this song. So,
okay.
and Eric thinks he knows what it is, but he doesn't. Right?
I have no clue.
Do you think
I'm going to say Pet Sounds, but no.
So you're wrong. Yeah. So it's not the Beach Boys.
It's not the Beach Boys. Okay.
No, but the Wrecking Crew played on this album. Carol Kay played bass on this entire album. Hal Blaine played drums on every song but this one, and I thought it was him. I'm like, oh my God, this is such a great Hal Blaine song. But turns out the drummer was Frank DeVito on this song. And the name of the song is Whipped Cream from Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. And it is one of my, what the hell is so funny, Chris? What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because it's a phenomenal choice.
It is my favorite drum song of all time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say I've never listened to Herb Alpert until I watched that documentary about A&M, and I got curious. And so I went down the whole rabbit hole listening to that record.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, for people of a certain age, everybody's parents had the album Whipped Cream and Other Delights in their collection. You could tell because it's got a woman on it. It's green covered with a woman covered supposedly in whipped cream. It's like an iconic album cover.
Yeah, it really is.
Taylor Swift actually just tied his record. Herb Alpert had a record that was unbeaten until Taylor Swift earlier in August broke it, of five number ones in 1 year, five different number one albums on the charts.
Wow!
But this is the title track from Whipped Cream. So Herb Alpert's stuff is very catchy. You used to hear it on game shows, but the drumming on Whipped Cream, it's got starts, stops. It's got the snare and kick drum combos. It's just one, like Herb Alpert obviously is known for his trumpet playing, and that's what the music is known for. But on Whipped Cream, for me, it's about the drums. It's the drums that kind of keep me. It's always hard. He does things that are hard to predict. He'll throw a snare in. He'll throw 3 snare hits in a row when you think there should be 2 or 4. He throws in the kick drum when you think there should be a snare. So this guy, Frank DeVito, whoever he was really kind of working it out and wasn't just, the thing about those session players, I think we've talked about it in other episodes. Sometimes session players come in and they're hired to do a job and they do it. But if you get session players that are invested in what's going on in the music, that's when the magic happens and they can bring something else to it. And Whipped Cream, it's the only instrumental as well that I picked. So it's by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, 1965. The song hit number 68, on the Billboard charts, but the album was number 1. This guy could do no wrong in the 60s, Herb Alpert. If you watch that documentary.
I never realized how big he really was. I thought it was just the one record, and I didn't realize all the other ones that came with it. And nor did I realize that that was the Wrecking Crew on that album.
Yeah. And actually it was mostly only him. Up until that album, he had pretty much done everything. He'd even doubled the trumpets. He just doubled them himself, and he used the Wrecking Crew. And this one became so popular. It's like, okay, I need a band because we need to go out on the road. So I actually need to hire people.
Oh, wow.
So he actually, he went out and, then they became a group. And also he's the A in A&M Records.
Yep. And Jerry Moss is his partner.
Yeah. Yep. So, and a champion of a lot of groups in the 70s on the A&M label. Like the Police were on A&M. So, There we go. That's our top 5. Some notable omissions. Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
Anybody did you think about the Beatles, Eric or Chris?
I thought about the Abbey Road suite, like at the end, in the end on the side to Abbey Road.
I thought about my go-to song for as far as Ringo is Tomorrow Never Knows. I love the drum sound. That and I'm Only Sleeping. I love the drum on that as well. It's a kind of a lazy drum, but I love the sound of the drums on that.
I thought about I Saw Her Standing There.
Okay.
Which was the first track off their first album, which kind of represented something totally.
Well, but, we haven't gotten to honorable mentions yet, but I'm assuming that so you don't have Ringo.
Well, yeah, he may show up as an honorable mention, but in the main thing, like we said, no Bonham. Just like when you go into a guitar shop, they say no Stairway, right? You're not allowed to play Stairway to Heaven when you try the guitar out.
No Moby Dick.
No Moby Dick. All right, so Eric, why don't you give us your first honorable mention?
All right,
we'll see how many we go through quickly.
Great, just a random, really great, powerful drum performance from the 80s. You know it right away when you hear it. It's Some Like It Hot, Power Station.
Oh,
Tony Thompson.
That's a great album.
Nice.
Phenomenal drum sound on that song. They, from what I understand, John and Andy Taylor wrote the song with Tony Thompson in mind. They were seeking him out. We want this guy to play this song because they knew he had the chops. He knew they had the power, the R&B flair, but also the power behind it. And it's a killer drum pattern on that. Even though it's doctored up, there's some electronic work there going on, some of the techie kind of stuff, but it's one of the great drum sounds of the 80s. It just stands out for me.
Nice.
That's one of the few records where that 80s drum sound really does work to the advantage of the material.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. I'm going to throw it. This is outside of my honorable mention, but since you mentioned Tony Thompson, I think we're going to throw Like a Virgin on the list as well. His drum work on Like a Virgin is like that. Yeah. That makes that song too. Like Tony Thompson on Like a Virgin is just front and center there. So that's just I'm tagging that one onto Eric's Tony Thompson, which is Power Station. I would have expected that out of me.
Yeah, I love that album. I think it's great. It's
or even anything off of Riptide, right, by Robert Palmer.
Robert Palmer, yeah, man, come on,
could have been. Yeah. So, all right, what do you got for an honorable, Chris?
Oh well, it's me. I'm sorry, man.
That's okay.
I was gonna say "Introduction" by Chicago off the first Chicago record. Danny Serafin doing all those crazy time signatures on that song and being able to keep up, and it's insane. Like what he was asked to do on that track is crazy.
I was thinking about Old Days from Chicago.
That's a great one too.
It's got all those fills. That song is like chock full of like him just kind of filling. Danny Serafin, another great drummer.
I've never understood why the band is always so down on him when they were interviewed, because he was just, to me, he was like the heart of the band when Terry Kath was alive.
He was as much of a virtuoso as Kath, as Robert Lamb on the keyboards and the guys on the horns.
Yeah. Those early albums. That first album was
the perfect record.
Formidable.
Yeah, he's no slouch.
Yep.
My honorable mention. Okay, I'm going to throw my hat into the Phil Collins thing. So we're going to get 3 Phil Collins on here.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah. This was actually my introduction to Phil. This song was actually my introduction to Phil Collins, I think. I ran out and bought the cassette. I don't care anymore. Off of Hello, I Must Be Going. This was the song I heard that was like, wow, okay, like, yeah, this is really neat stuff. I went out and got the cassette for Hello, I Must Be Going. Fell in love with that, devoured that, and then went backwards from there. I wasn't on board when Face Value came out. So for me, it was, I don't care anymore, because it had that reminiscent, although it's not, but people say, oh, it's like In the Air Tonight, but it's not really, but it's got that drum, it's got that drum work in the beginning. So I just kind of in reviewing the stuff with Phil Collins, I'm like, let me go back to the very beginning of what grabbed my ear. And it was, I don't care anymore.
It's a great choice. I also thought about Both Sides. The song Both Sides from his Both Sides record, which was a later album, that has a great drum track on there. It's one of those, atmospheric type, but it's like builds, and I kind of almost went with that one too. But yeah, that's a great choice.
I think now we just set a record. This is the first top 5 to have one artist with 3 songs.
Yeah. Well,
so anyway, another honorable mention. What do you got?
Well, we just talked about the great Robbie Robertson, didn't we?
Yeah.
And the drummer on that record was the great. I don't know, many people don't know him, but Mano Katché is very, very formidable. I love this guy. He's very understated, very tasteful. He very elegant drummer, and the song is Somewhere Down the Crazy River.
Yeah.
The drum pattern on that song is just, I just love it. It catches you. It gets you in that mood, right? I mean, it just, it sets the atmosphere, and it's just this, sort of sluggish kind of, and it really carries the song. And then of course, Robbie's, the spoken word, it's just a great.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is his work on Somewhere Down the Crazy River reminiscent of Stuart Copeland?
Could be.
You just get some. I get some. Now, when I started thinking about when you were saying it, and then we were talking about Stuart Copeland, there's a little bit of that same type of DNA, that kind of atmospheric stuff, the small cymbal stuff,
Yeah, he does. He does. They know, these guys know how to work
hits. Yeah,
these guys really know how to explore the kit. And we're not just talking drums. We're talking cymbals. We're talking crash. We're talking hi-hat. We're talking where that's an integral part, just as important as any major drum component, like the tom-toms or the snare. But yeah, you're right. It's like there's that, and then he has this incredible snap when he hits those rim shots. You think of songs like Your Latest Trick from the Brothers in Arms album on Dire Straits. He plays on that song. The title track he played with Sting, and of course Peter Gabriel. And he's still touring with Gabriel. But I just love his very understated but elegant drumming. It really captures the attention. And it's, you don't have to be a bombastic drummer to be great. You know, and I think he proves that he's one of those drummers.
This is atmospheric and tapestry style drumming.
That's right.
Setting the scene for the song, setting the backdrop. Which
you're
is
right.
Perfect. All right.
Yep.
Chris, what do you got? You got something else there?
I got this one was the last. I almost had it on the list. I was trying to figure out if I was going to swap it out. It's Goodbye Eleanor by Toto, another Jeff Porcaro.
Wow, 2 Toto songs. Who would have thunk?
And that one, it's just like it's this like driving hard rock song, but it's got this like bounce to it, and it's just in the way that he's playing the drums and playing all these fills in between the songs. It gives it like this like bouncing type of feel, even though it's like a hard rocking tune.
Yeah. Again, we can't say enough about Toto and Jeff Porcaro. Just these guys are top. Toto's they're all top shelf, top rate musicians anyway. So when they decide to say, "Hey, let's make a band," how could you miss? Even if they had a fair share of hits, but everything else is just going to sound great no matter what, because they're just such pros. I'm going to go back to 1979 for Renegade from Styx. John Panazzo.
Yes.
I could not leave him off of the list, but I needed to find the right song. And Renegade is one of those ones. It's got kind of a swing. It's got kind of a swing tempo to it also on the the verses and the chorus. But he's another big drummer. John, like one of those he's like I look at him and Bev Bevan in the same type of way. They had those big. They would have those big fills.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go crazy with technically, but they just have those big bombastic 70s kind of drum fills that you looked forward to, that really kind of epitomized that decade. So
those ones Renegade, you play air drums to in your car.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately sung by Tommy Shaw, but I couldn't find a Dennis DeYoung song that
that had that
yeah. He seemed to have done his big work with anytime Tommy Shaw. Dennis DeYoung he required a little more nuance. Tommy Shaw needed some of the bigger stuff. So Eric, you got another? Let's go with a couple more.
Okay.
What you got?
I got a song. It's actually Kelly actually picked this one And it's Josh Freese, his performance on Mother Mother by Tracy Bonham.
Oh, that's a good tune.
Yeah. As we know, he replaced Taylor Hawkins in Foo Fighters. He's now the drummer for them. But yeah, it's a formidable, and I didn't really think about it, but she, I was kind of asking, I always like to ask my family, so what do you guys got? What do you like? And I always kind of like to throw those in. And she's like, yeah, I really like the drums on that one. I really love that song. And I listened to it. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty formidable. And he's very comparable to, the late Taylor Hawkins and Dave Grohl. It's that same, like I mentioned before, same kind of style, same kind of that heavy, drumming, very, very similar in sound and technique, but yeah, but I really, really dig the fills on this song. And it's just a great, just a really great rock, especially when she, when it really builds to that moment where she's screaming her bloody head off, and it, and it, the drum really just kind of accents that. So it's just, cool. Really powerful. Yeah.
All
so
right.
There it is. Yep.
Let's scoop out another one, Chris.
Heart of the Sunrise by Yes. Bill Bruford playing the drums. Just
this
playing
guy's
all those.
Really, holy shit. This guy, I mean, I gotta tell you, man, you're really pulling out all the stops. I wouldn't,
I foresee a prog rock podcast being spun off, not having anything to do with me, but I foresee a prog podcast maybe on the horizon.
I grew up loving Yes. My father and my mother were both Yes heads, so I grew up loving Yes, and I just like, Bill Bruford's like one of those guys who's like a jazz drummer, and like to keep up with the crazy not time changes, but tempo changes in that song, and to really make every mood in that song fit perfectly with what he's playing. It's just an amazing performance.
One of the greats. He's right up there with the likes of, Pert and, and Phil, and, these guys are just fantastic.
Yeah.
Didn't he retire recently, officially?
He did.
Yeah.
Right. He said it's time to hang it up. Like he kind of, Bill Bruford. Yeah,
and he wasn't afraid to experiment either. In the 80s, that rendition of King Crimson was probably my favorite.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Was with Adrian Belew and Fripp and Tony Levin.
Tony Levin.
And I saw that show, one of their shows, and I just remember Bruford having nothing. I mean, he had a wall of just electronic drums hanging off the wall and cymbals and all kinds of. I mean, how the hell could you even reach half this shit? I have no idea, but somehow he did, and it was just a cacophony of like percussion, and it was just phenomenal. I was like, whoa, this is. I wasn't actually prepared for that back in the day, but yeah, it was great.
And then to even walk away from Yes, like right when they were like at the peak of their, and then to say, nope, I want to like do something else, just really shows like a dedication to his craft that he had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Bill Bruford is a drummer that many people probably haven't heard of, but definitely as far as prog rock music goes, just one of the standard bearers for all the different groups he was in.
Yep.
I'm going to bring us up to 2003. See, so I didn't have anything in the 90s, but I'm going to go pretty recent. Seven Nation Army by White Stripes, Meg White. That's just raw. It's just raw. People, and we talked about it on our White Stripes episode. People drag her. She's a shitty drummer. She's whatever. No, she's not. She's a she's a raw drummer. She matches, especially in this song, which, was basically just the guitar. It's just guitar and drums anyway, but this is really a stripped down song. Mm-hmm. And it's just raw energy, and she matches that. She really, is formidable. I like her. I like her drumming. She's powerful. She's raw. She's not maybe technically proficient, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with that either.
You don't need that for the White Stripes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. For what they do and how they, what their kind of roadmap going forward was for them. That's what it was. It's raw, bluesy material, unhinged, not perfect.
Right. And I don't think, I'm sorry, but a lot of people don't seem to realize just how difficult a simple beat can be.
Yeah.
And to keep that going and steady and keeping that rhythm and keeping it straight and keeping it perfect. That's not easy to do. You know, it really isn't, because you could be off, and a lot of people will be like, no, you're not playing it. You know, I think of Whiplash,
dragging or leading.
Oh my God, that was
dragging or leading.
But no, but seriously, I mean, I think it's, you know, the drumming. I don't know if it's become a lost art or not. I mean, a lot of people like to use samples. They like to just kind of sample what they're doing and then use that as the basis of what, you know, in today's day and age. And there's a lot of that going on. Drumming is, I don't think they get the appreciation that it's not as prestigious as it used to be. I don't even know if it was ever prestigious. You know, if, you know, because drummers are a dime a dozen. You know, it's like guitar players are, you know, like you could say that about guitar players too. I mean, there's just so many greats, you know, but it's like I don't know. It's an art. To me, it's an art in itself, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
it's probably, you know what it is? It's harder to stand out. Right.
Yeah.
Because the lead singer is the glamour guy, the guitar, right. You know, because they're all up front and they're moving around. Even the bass player can walk around and be around, you know, the drummer's kind of planted back there on their throne, but that's it. That's where they are, you know? So it's kind of, you know, just from a visual standpoint too, it's not very glamorous. It's like, oh yeah, he's the one keeping time while we get to do all the solos and the melodies and do all this kind of crazy stuff. So, Chris, you got one more?
Yeah. I'm the One by Van Halen. It's on the first Van Halen record.
There it is. Okay. Van Halen made it in.
It's almost like a vaudeville type of song. Like you could totally see like the influence of like where they came from playing with their dad and big bands and stuff. And it's, you know, a lot of like stops and starts and like, you know, using again, that jazz element and hard rock. And it's always one of those songs on that Van Halen one that stood out to me in particular because of the way he attacks the drums in the song.
Nice. Alex.
We made it.
Wearing the Tarzan outfit in the what is it? Not the Pretty Woman video? Is he?
Yeah,
like
I think it was, or Panama. Right? It was one of those.
I think it was Panama.
No, I think it's Pretty Woman because Eddie Van Halen's like the gunslinger. David Lee Roth dressed as Napoleon.
Yeah,
okay.
Michael Anthony's the samurai, and Alex is Tarzan. He's sitting in the hut, and then the girl calls and he gets the knife and he puts it in his. I know too much about this stuff.
I think that was one of the first band videos on MTV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little racy for its time. Okay, my final one, I've got one on here, but we've already recognized that person, so we'll leave it. I'm gonna go to 1983. She's a Beauty by the Tubes. Mr. Prairie Prince, who was actually one of the founding members of Journey.
Yep.
For me, this is 80s done right. So the Tubes were like a 70s art rock band. And they kind of sailed into the 80s on that new wavy sound, you know, but this has got the traditional drumming on it. And She's a Beauty is just an infinitely listenable song, but it's got that organic, real drumming. They didn't go with the drum pads and the electronic sound. And I think it kind of grounds it a little bit more into a little more rock, a little bit less of the 80s sounding, a little bit more rock sounding. And Prairie Prince's drumming on this is a lot of nice work. It's very tasty. It's not anything special. It's not gonna change the world, but on She's a Beauty, he's really kind of in there. Again, for a time when the drums were electronic and sampled, to have a song like this that sounds firmly like the 80s, but to have this really kind of almost classic rock drum sound to it, was really nice and refreshing. And it's whenever I hear She's a Beauty, it's like it's about the drums for me. So Fee Waybill.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a great track. Yeah.
So I think we'll stop it there. That's like what, four honorable mentions and 5. So that's 9 each.
Yep.
Right. So that's going to be nice.
I think I only have. I don't think you skipped me.
We did. How did we skip?
I only have 3.
Oh well, give us another one then.
Oh goodness.
One more.
You know what? What? I'm gonna go for it. I'm throwing Bonham in the mix.
Okay, there we go.
He made the list, and it's not, and it's the Crunch.
All right,
from House of the Holy. That works for me because it's just it's just an odd signature. The whole song is odd to begin with.
Everything about Bonham is odd.
It's nothing. This is Zeppelin like doing something completely different, and I love the song. I always have, and that's one of my favorite tracks by Bonham. but so it's not the heavy, sort of when the levee breaks or Moby Dick. It's something different that he's actually doing a little bit of jazz there. I mean, I think he's just going a little bit off, and he's just on purpose. And I think it works. I think it works.
All right, there you go. So the crunch.
Where's that confounded bridge?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I think we've got a really interesting and eclectic list that we'll have on Spotify as a playlist. So, like I said, we invite you, the listener, to join us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, and let us know what you'd like to add to the list. We will add it to the Spotify playlist, so you can say, "Hey, I helped to build that playlist as well." So a lot of great stuff in here. And again, the great thing about this is they're not just songs with just drums in them. I don't want people to get scared off when we say drum songs. It's like, oh, it's not just a song with only drums in it. So it's great musical experiences, but hopefully we're gonna kind of ask you to pay attention to the drumming. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But on these songs, we want you to kind of turn your ears a little bit towards the drum sounds that are being made on these records and give them a listen. So, Chris, how do you think you did?
I hope I did okay, man. I made it. Fun? I feel like I did okay. I definitely did, man. This was a great conversation.
You did fantastic, sir.
Dude, you picked some formidable. Yes. And this is going to be a long, we got to warn you guys, it's going to be a long playlist because some of these songs that you chose, I mean, you're Heart of the Sunrise is like, I think it's 12 minutes, something like that. Maybe more.
Strangiato's like 10, I think, too.
That's right.
we're gonna, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to make the Spotify playlist, and we're gonna have like Chris's stuff separate because that's like a whole other thing, like a whole other listening experience. It's like it's like an EP. Like Chris gets an EP on this.
That's right.
To use Eric's term, your musical knowledge is formidable.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing that, because we always appreciate people that love, even people that don't know why they love music, but you have a deep knowledge of it. And thank you for bringing that to bear.
And we really appreciate your contribution to the page and everything you've been contributing. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for people we're not just throwing everyday thing. We're looking for people who have a little bit of they're not afraid to show their knowledge and we
not afraid to geek out a little bit.
Geek out and to start a conversation even. I mean that's the whole point, So,
yeah. Chris posts a lot of great things, and we hope you'll come back. Did we rough you up too much? Or?
If you guys will have me back, I'd love to come back. I had a lot of fun.
No, we certainly will. Yeah,
absolutely.
Great.
Do you like 60s bubblegum pop?
I do, man. Sugar. Okay. I'm a fan.
Oh shit! All right, well you're coming back. I thought I was going to sting him.
Nope.
Wow,
he's not going to be scared away.
It doesn't happen often, but he almost left me speechless. And as a podcaster, that's not a good thing. But, no, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
We absolutely look forward to having you back. So, hit us up on social media. Go ahead and see what's going on there. If you're listening to us on whatever podcast provider you're listening to, go ahead and just give us 5-star review. We would appreciate that. It helps us grow. It helps us kind of spread the word and get in front of more ears, as it were. But we appreciate you for joining us on this episode and checking us out. So, for Chris, for Eric, this has been Dean. We will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.